Happy New Year to my air signs, Libra, Aquarius, and Gemini. Welcome to the Capricorn New Moon. You'll find the timestamps for your rising signs listed below. Hello Libra Rising, Happy New Year. Welcome to your horoscope for the Capricorn New Moon happening on January the 11th at 10:58 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. Now we're going to be staunch, we're going to be convinced, we're going to be grounded, and we're going to have a look at your fourth house at this new moon, Libra Rising. Now, the fourth is our home, our privacy, our roots, and our ancestry. And a new moon is the perfect time to set our intention. So I'd like you to ruminate on those topics, as broad or as narrow as they might be. I'd like for you to really think about the definition of the fourth house in regard to the home that you are creating or have created for yourself. Not everybody has flow through with their ancestral lines. Not everybody has relationships with those in their family. Some folks have a difficult time reconciling or even thinking about the way that they were raised. So it's really, I reckon, quite a modern way to look at the fourth house and think about it in the way that you're building structure for yourself. You're building a safe, healthy home environment. And think about what you'd like that to look like moving forward. You can think about it in terms of the next 6 months until the next Capricorn full moon, where you can release your expectations around that area. You can think about it in terms of the next 12 months until we make our wishes again at the beginning of next year. Or you can think about it just forevermore. Just think about how you have a relationship with structure and safety and comfort, and what your home life is going to be like from now on. Where do you want to call home? Where do you want to live? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And what do you need in that environment to feel safe and nurtured and protected? At 20 degrees of Capricorn, the sun and the moon conjoin, forming our moment of intention. And in tarot, we do talk about the Four of Pentacles in that space of the zodiac. And some ways to look at this card is kind of like with a bit of judgment. It's sort of like, okay, well, you've got all your coins. That's great for you. Who are you turning your back on? There's a city behind this individual, and it's sort of like he's turning his gaze away from the milieu in order to hold tight to what he has. This card is representative of the sun in Capricorn, and so I think that I can speak fairly diligently to it because I am a Capricorn sun in the third decan of Capricorn. So this is the card that is in my birth cards, and it's one that I work with often. And I think that the way that I look at it, definitely there is kind of like a feeling of like knuckling down, hunkering down. But the way that it makes sense to me is that I'm actually not so brilliant with finance. I'm not so stingy with it either. I sort of tend to burns a hole in my pocket. Thank you, Pisces and Gemini, for that. But the way that I look at this card and incorporate it, fold it into my life, is that there's something about sort of going the distance with this individual. There's something about sort of like finding a steady base and weathering a storm if need be. Now, I'm not a prepper. I'm not sort of talking about sort of stowing things away for end of days. I don't buy into that sort of future for us. I buy into a future where there is equity and fairness, and where those that don't have very much are provided with what they need, where the folks that are sitting in places of extreme privilege and extreme wealth are required to spread it around in ways that they currently do not. I believe in a future that is safe and grounded and sturdy for all of us. So when preparing or when holding on to what it is that you do have, and with the back against the city, the back against the noise, there's something here about, as I said, it's kind of like going the distance. We must remember that Pluto, the planet of disintegration and destruction and revelation, as in revealing, is at the final degree of Capricorn as we speak, 29 degrees. And 10 days after this new moon in Capricorn, they're going to make their move into Aquarius. They'll be there until September of this year. They will retrograde back to Capricorn at that time in September the 2nd, I think, down here for us. And then they'll be in Aquarius full time a year from now in January of 2025. Aquarius is the sign of the people. Aquarius is a forward thinker that activates new strategies, new ways of being, new ways of perceiving the world around us. Systems of growth are what Aquarius is really concerned with. They're really sure of themselves in a really lovely way. Their mind works at a mile a minute like a sort of machine, but hopefully the right Aquarians of this world realize that we are not machines, and that that's part of the limitation to the current way that society is structured, is that humans are expected to be machines. And in fact, if we all are machines and overproduce, we take and deplete from the Earth's natural resources. And that's the bottom line. That's the fourth house, the root structure, those systems that we must protect at all costs. So perhaps in this manifestation or this intention setting around your fourth house, Libra rising, you're going to be going the distance, you're going to be in it for the long game. Perhaps it might even be quite literally about your house, your home, and how sustainable or energy efficient that place is. That could be a really great, practical, very Capricorn way of working with the astrology. There's conversations that are popping up between the sun and the moon and Taurus in your 8th house, the house that has been surging power for the past 20 months, the house that has had such an influx of extra information and energy, the house of grief, the house of loss, the house of our resources bound and interwoven with that of the other, the house of our obligations, I would say in a spiritual sense. We grieve those that we love sincerely, and the 8th house teaches us how that happens. The sun and the moon are in supportive conversation with Uranus, the rebel, the revolutionary that's still in Taurus. They'll in fact station direct on the 24th of January. So again, there'll be another point of conversation around those topics for you, Libra rising. But there might be something in there. There might be something in the obligation of resources interwoven, as opposed to your home and how you're going to invest resources into that space. It's a trine, it's not in opposition, it's actually supportive. Mars is also in Capricorn, in exact trine with Jupiter, so there's more bravery here. There's more sort of intention setting and being really convinced about this for you, Libra rising. There's something here that Mars is saying that is like, yeah, let's do this. And Jupiter, in exact trine, 5 degrees is like, yeah, let's do this. Let's pool our resources. There could be things around like cooperative living here. I don't know if you're into that. I'm not sure if I'd be very good at it. But that's a solution, isn't it? That's how a lot of folks are choosing that solution in order to better develop their relationship with the literal roots of this planet. These things, this is the time for it. The obesity and the decadence of greed has shown itself, and there's no stuffing that turkey back into the sock. Greed is not good. I hope that there'll never be an 80s again. 1980s, gecko, sell, inflation. I think that there's a lot of working class folks that are really kind of feeling the pinch quite sincerely right now about being able to afford a roof over their head and the bare necessities, and can't quite understand why they're earning the same money but it's worth less. They're not getting paid anymore, they're earning the same but it's worth less to keep everything else afloat, to keep growth at all costs. That's morbid, and that's not something that we're subscribing to anymore, Libra Rising. There's a little chat with the dragon too. So the sun and the moon are in square this time, so pressure, cardinal sign to cardinal sign, with the dragon's head. So there's a focus on your relationships. We're going to be working over the next 6 months intensively on healing some of that unconscious wounding about the way that you relate to people, the affection and the love and the connection that you yearn for, and how sometimes that might be difficult for you to ask for or difficult for you to receive as well. But that's what Chiron is here in your 7th house. That's what the next 6 months are here for, and Mars as well. By the time we reach mid-year, Mars will have met up with Chiron and the dragon. And Mars is great in Aries, so hopefully there'll be a clear way there. You are ultra lovable, Libra Rising. You're ultra worthy of having a safe roof over your head, a safe space to land. And if revolution is what you want, if changing things up is what you need, then I imagine that 2024 will be compelling you to do so. There's something about privilege here in this card, isn't there? That's definitely a way to read it. And I think Pluto in Capricorn is revealing as I said, the grotesque sight of privilege. That's intersectional. And those of us who are white and English speaking have a lot of privilege that others around the world do not, others in our own country do not. And I think that part of Pluto's journey and intent in Capricorn is revealing a lot of that to us now too. There's no stuffing this turkey back into the sock. I don't know why I said that, but I'm going with it. You can't ignore it any longer. Things really do need to change, and there's something about a reality and standing in the truth of the moment, of the history, of our time here now. There's a reason that we're all awake, that we're all living through this lifetime right now, as difficult as that might be sometimes to reconcile. And it changes and chops and changes. I don't always think that. Sometimes I think, wow, this is awful. This is horrible. I can't believe that this would happen to so many innocent people. There's something on the way. There's something going to move with this. I think a lot about those that are in power, those that have this sort of grotesque attitude, this grotesque caricatures. We don't have to name them, you can see them out there on the public stage. But these folks, I think about them sometimes. I think about what they're going to go through when all is said and done, in their final hours, when they're frail and weak and sick and old. Will they be sorry that they behaved so cruelly and put so many kind, innocent, hardworking people through such torment? There's a long game that's happening here, Libra Rising. You've got someone in company that's not going anywhere. They're going to stay the distance with you, as frustrated sometimes as you might be at the lack of speed of this change, this metamorphosis, but they're not going anywhere, and they hold the same values that you do. And it might take a bit of a plunge into the deep before you can re-emerge into the new reality, the new space. There's a lot of deep work that this year can provide if you're willing to face it. The shadow work that's involved with Chiron and the dragon is abundantly clear. And so think about what strategies you can implement to take that deep dive, knowing all the while that this individual, this Knight of Pentacles, is not going anywhere. They've got your back, they're staying by your side, and they're going to support you in this work, this hard work that you're endeavoring to do. And this could be on the house, this could be on your locale, this could be on your spirit, on your soul, on your relationships. So take the plunge and be encouraged that that dragon's tail, as sinister as it sometimes might look, and as we saw last year with the eclipse in Libra, how unjust the world seemed in that moment to moment. Here in Australia, when the vote came through as no, as a crescendo of injustice, and then the horror and pain around the globe. However, this is your soul's guiding light, upright. I choose the way that leads between the great two lines of force, Libra Rising. Not us and them, not black and white, not you against me. I'm going this way, and hopefully you'll all follow when you realize. Much love to you, honey. I hope that was a nice, gentle way to begin the calendar year. I'll be back with you in 2 weeks to talk about the full moon in Leo, which will be really bright, really bold, maybe a little hectic. You can subscribe to my channel at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. You can throw some money in the tip jar there as well if you'd like to. You can get to umaruby.com and get your birth chart read by me. They look like this. If I've read for you before and you'd like another, you can choose a femme, a love, a truth, a growth, or a magic reading. And we'll look at the astrology, the transits specifically in relationship to your chart and what we've got to look forward to for the next 6 months, and also a lot of tarot. So have a think about it, and if you'd like another reading, book one in. Much love to you, Libra Rising. Thank you very much for your support and for being here with me. And let's face 2024 with conviction. Hello, Aquarius Rising. Happy New Year. And welcome to your horoscope for the Capricorn new moon happening on January the 11th of this year, 2024, at 10:58 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. Now, we're going to harness our Capricorn-ness. We're going to become really staunch, really convinced, and really direct with our intention at this new moon. The sun and the moon have joined forces at 20 degrees of Capricorn at this time, Aquarius rising, and just in time for a activation. Capricorn for you rules your 12th house, which is very private, which is very mystical. It's the work that we do internally and subconsciously, unconsciously maybe even. It has a relationship with our spirituality, absolutely. It has a relationship with our ability to lucid dream and to move around those spaces. It has a dark side too. It can bring up some conflict. It can bring up some fear. It can have other folks judge us. Well, that was the way that it was in the old days anyway. The 12th house in Hellenistic astrology was called the house of bad spirit, and in sort of the Victorian era, it had a lot to do with incarceration and lunatic asylums and things like that. So we're evolving as a collective, as a group, as a think tank, and we know that there is beauty in diversity in the way that each and every one of us moves in a different way inside and has a very different perspective on the world around us than the other. That's actually really valid. Diversity is essential for a healthy ecosystem. So Capricorn is there for you in the 12th. A new moon is a direct intention to set in that place. Perhaps there's further deep work that you're going to venture down on the road of this year, Aquarius Rising, and I absolutely probably can almost guarantee it, because 10 days after this new moon, Pluto, the planet of disintegration, destruction, and rebirth, is entering your first house, is entering Aquarius once more. They're going to stay there until September of this year, and then by that point they will be in their retrograde direction, so we'll move backwards into Capricorn and sit at 29 degrees of Capricorn until 2025 in January, exactly a year from when they entered this year. So this is like the crescendo of something going on. This is a crescendo for you and your beautiful internal metamorphosis. The changes that are occurring rapidly inside are about to reveal themselves in your first house. Your soul's potential, your soul's rising intention is going to meet with Pluto over, let's say, the next 20 years, depending on where your rising placement is. But let's be real. If Pluto represents power, and Aquarius, as you know all too well, represents the people, then Pluto in Aquarius could be power to the people. It doesn't feel like that right now. It does feel really tense and fraught. However, if we think about what Capricorn represents for all of us, which on an individual level can be, that diligence and hard work and perseverance, on a global scale it does mean systems of finance, systems of power. And so Pluto is disseminating all of those. And I think that 2024, we're going to see lots of abrupt change, lots of things that are being revealed, dredged up from the past and shown. And I anticipate that this is going to be a year that we'll all remember. So we need to keep you strong and sort of supple and ready for it, Aquarius Rising. The sun and the moon at 20 degrees speak to the Four of Pentacles in the tarot. So this card can go either way, as they all can. Sometimes you look at this card and you can see someone with a lot of power, perhaps a lot of wealth, who is steadfastly holding onto it and is quite immovable, quite stubborn, very Capricorn. I'm a Capricorn sun, so I can empathize quite sincerely with the light and the shadow of what Capricorn means for all of us. In the positive way, there is definitely something about sticking to task and about learning and about mastery. There is something in the shadow that does feel quite stuck, and it often has something to do with Capricorns potentially feeling that they're not worth much unless they're consistently producing. So that's something to think about. But if we look at this card and if we examine this in ways that your 12th house might want us to, there's a conversation here about you've already experienced this metamorphosis, this shift over, as powerful as it could be, is something that you already in your unconscious reality know to be true. You've seen it happen, perhaps in your dreams or perhaps in the ways that you think about. If you think about the possibility that our consciousness might be linked in some way or might be in close relationship with the patterns that we find in our universe. And when it comes to upheaval and change, there's almost something that you might be steeling yourself and prepared for. You're sort of holding on to your gold, but in this sense, it's the gold of wisdom. I like this for you, Aquarius Rising. And also it's worth noting that the sun and the moon at 20 degrees are in a very supportive aspect, a trine with Uranus, the planet of revolution and rebellion, which sits in your 4th house in Taurus, your home, your roots, your ancestry, the place that has been through a great deal of change and metamorphosis and points of interest, because the dragon drew our attention there for so long. Uranus remains. The dragon has moved on to Aries. but Uranus is still there, and Uranus will station direct on the 24th of January. So this first 3 weeks of January is quite powerful. We've got to hold on to our hats to see what happens. But if we think about what has revolutionized, in your opinion or your understanding about your ancestry, about your bloodlines, your family, how you are building a safe space for yourself that is rebellious, perhaps from the traditions of those before you, or perhaps you're feathering your nest of safety in a way that wasn't provided to you much long ago when you were growing up. So this connection to your unconscious self, perhaps some unconscious wounding has been dislodging over the recent history. And so this support that I feel between Uranus and the Sun and the Moon is like, yes, let's continue this journey, Aquarius Rising. Let's continue it. Let's build you up. Let's build you up so you're ready for the power that Pluto might bring into your life as we move forward. There's more support between Capricorn and Taurus. Mars has entered Capricorn at 5 degrees, is forming again an exact trine of support, holding hands with Jupiter in Taurus. So that magnifying glass, that sort of excavation of your ancestry, of what safety and comfort and privacy and home mean to you, is being fed a bit of bravery at this new moon. It is very powerful what's happening here, and it feels like we've sort of stepped into the new calendar year and we've got a lot to face. Don't feel too pressured about it, and don't feel overwhelmed. Or if you feel overwhelmed, keep in mind that the Chinese celebrate the Lunar New Year in February, on February 10th, and we all, in astrological language, can celebrate the zodiacal New Year at the Aries new moon, although that will be an eclipse. So we'll talk more about that as the year goes on. But this is kind of the moment that I've been sort of preparing for a while when speaking to you, Aquarius Rising. I am working quite sincerely with Pluto. In my chart, I'm a Pisces rising, and so Pluto, in the esoteric sense, has a great deal of information for my Pisces soul. If I can learn and reconcile and welcome upheaval and rebirth, the reclamation of one's self, one's identity, one's soul's intention, one's pathway, then this is kind of what I've been thinking about for years now, since I began my healing, and since I recognized that Pluto and Capricorn, their days were numbered, and that it was Aquarius's turn next. So I'm going to be with you, and we're going to be speaking about Pluto whenever we need to. We'll also be chatting a lot this year about Chiron as well in Aries, because the dragon wants us to. The dragon's focused in on this unconscious wound, this collective unconscious wound perhaps. For you, Aquarius, there's so much that you can heal or provide healing with if you get more in touch with your goddess, if you get more in touch with your own rituals, your own private languages, your own relationship with the universe. I'm so grateful that you're here and that I can provide you with some comfort and support with the way that I see it. It's interactive, this stuff. And so if you're interested, learn as much as you can, gobble it up, you know. These horoscopes hopefully aren't sort of predictive in a sense of doom and gloom, but the way that they've really helped me, and the way that these languages have really helped me succeed and to come through and to become reborn in some way, is to give my life some context. And so I can recognize the way that my mind works, the way that my emotions flow, the way that I am sometimes addicted to work because I don't think that I'm worth very much else. There's room to move with that. And it's the astrology that sort of guided my way there, by learning about the relationships that we have to our galaxy, to the mythology, to these ancient stories that are told and retold and redeveloped too. As I said, it's interactive. There's something about defensiveness that I'm feeling right now with the tarot cards, Aquarius Rising. So perhaps it was when I started talking about bloodlines and ancestry and a sense of grounding, the sort of root structure of your life. Not everybody has access to their parents. Not everybody has access to their caregivers. And in some ways, there has been a blunt break or there for whatever reason. And so it's not a great thing to paint everyone with the same brush when speaking about ancestry. Not everybody can feel the healthy growth beneath their feet. So if it is defensiveness that you're feeling, if there is sort of something about jarring up when thinking about that, don't feel that by me saying this, you have to face it now. What I would do is strengthen as much as you can your faith and ability, your faith in your own abilities, standing as the singular entity that you are, individual. You're graceful and beautiful and powerful and are in fact building your own fourth house. That's what we do. The fourth house sometimes is an extension of legacy, but not always. In fact, in contemporary culture, very rarely. So think about fourth house, think about what you're creating for yourself and how you provide yourself with a sense of nurturing. And perhaps that might ease some of this defensiveness when the topic is brought up. I think that what I'm seeing here is that there's definitely a moment to contemplate with this changeover. The last degree of a sign, 29 degrees, is pivotal. It's really, really electrified because it's like almost like it's the last point to make before the planet enters into the next sign. And because Pluto is the one that moves the slowest, it does feel really profound. And so to exit your 12th house, to enter your first house, you might even find that solitude is what salves you or what soothes you. So find it where you can. And there's a difference, the Hermit teaches us this, there's a difference between hiding and between taking your time alone. If you feel sometimes that you're hermiting and hiding and not entering communal space or friendship circles or whatever it is, because you don't want to drag people through this nagging feeling of transformation or terror if you're frightened, and that's your impulse is to hide, I would gently, with the Hermit's support, say you needn't, because folks love you, and the folks that love you will want to support you through this profound shift. Well, that's your reading, Aquarius Rising. I hope that was a comforting way to enter into the new calendar year. As I said, the Chinese celebrate the Lunar New Year, and it's this year on the 10th of February. And the Zodiacal New Year begins with an eclipse. So action stations, but also a couple of months to really get that key in the ignition. If you're still here with me, Aquarius Rising, please put a goat in the comments. I'd really appreciate that. You can support my horoscope work over at buymeacoffee.com/Uma Ruby. You can subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month, and you can also tip me there if you have the resources. If you'd like me to read your birth chart, I'll draw you one up, and they look like this, and you can organise that appointment over at my website, umaruby.com. I'll see you in 2 weeks and we'll chat all about the full moon in Leo. And so this is going to be an illumination into your 7th house of the other, of relationships, of connection. So whatever it is that you need to give back to the moon, you'll be able to. Whatever it is that you want to celebrate and feel lit up, you'll be able to. Take care, Aquarius Rising. Much love. Hello, Gemini Rising. Happy New Year. Welcome to your horoscope for the Capricorn new moon happening on January the 11th at 10:58 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So we're going to really focus at this one. The moon itself gets pretty uncomfortable in Capricorn simply because it's in the opposite sign to which it feels most comfortable, which is Cancer, which we sort of worked with at the last Cancer full moon. But tonight is the night, or the 11th will be the night, to set our intent for the coming year, specifically in relationship to your 8th house, which is where we collaborate. It's where we pool our resources together. And it also has a lot to do with how we grieve and the responsibilities that we have around saying goodbye to those that we have loved very sincerely. It's a complex house and not one of the most exciting in terms of a good time, but just as important. Capricorn, the sign itself, is cardinal earth, so it is really hardworking and really focused on its achieving its goal. So with those feelings in mind, tonight, to start off their sort of calendar year, really as far as moving forward into 2024, of which there's going to be a lot of astrology to chat about. I'll go through it as we go along, but keep those ideas in your mind. Keep ideas of collaboration, keep ideas of responsibility, and keep ideas of honoring grief in your mind at this time. There's sort of like a stoic feeling around Capricorn too. There's sort of in a beautiful juxtaposition perhaps to Cancer, who is so direct with their emotions and feelings and protecting people and nurturing them, giving them what they need. Capricorn can feel sometimes a bit remote in that regard. So maybe when you think about your 8th house, think about how you are diligent in those areas. Think about how you are hardworking in those areas. Also, provide yourself with room to loosen up some of those tenser muscles too. The word grief is something that is a palpable emblem for all of us at this time. And I don't wish to start the new year off on a downer, because there's lots to look forward to for us as well, Gemini Rising. But I just wanted to perhaps stand with you in this moment and witness the grief, and then use our Capricorn sensibilities as to how best we are going to surmount is the wrong word, but how we are going to make this make sense. How are we going to put this to best use? These feelings, this feeling of intertwining your resources with others, that could be in the way of sharing what it is you have around, what it is that is special to you, that you value, that you hold dear. How is that incorporated? How is that shared with other folks? How do you move that around, and how do you use that work ethic of Capricorn, and how do you be a good leader? I think the cardinal signs are all leaders. Gemini, not so much. Gemini is much more movable, like Pisces and Virgo and Sagittarius. There is sort of like a sort of impressionability, maybe. There's definitely go with the flow with those signs. Whereas Capricorn and Cancer are both cardinal signs. They initiate into the lesson, the element. So an initiation into earth, to practical dealings, to accruing, to growing, those sorts of things. I have been doing a lot of gardening lately, and I've been learning the patience required to do that. There's also a side of magic to it I can't deny, but there's definitely something quite satisfying about the wait time when you're cultivating. Yeah, there you go. In tarot, so at 20 degrees of Capricorn, the sun and the moon are conjunct, forming this moment for us to set our intention. The tarot card is the Four of Pentacles, a difficult card sometimes, a constructive card In other times, this person is really clamping down and holding onto what it is that they have and they know. And they're sort of turning their back to the community at this time. In shadow, this can look like greed. This can look like not letting go of resources or not being gregarious and generous with them. In a more kind of stoic, a more kind of positive light, this could be someone who's really convinced and is going to seize the weather brewing, collecting in the sky above, and is battening down the hatches and holding true to survival. So that's something to chat about. There is imagery in this card that does speak to another ingress, another movement in the sky around this new moon. So 10 days after, on the 21st of January, Pluto, the planet that does destroy, that does decimate and reveal, is moving away from Capricorn into Aquarius. So Capricorn, on a global sort of feeling, Capricorn for all of us can represent superiors. It can represent folks in power. It can represent power structures. And so in that way, you can see what Pluto is revealing at this time. There is a lot of revelation that is brewing. And I think in this sort of crescendo of leaving 29 degrees, the most critical point of each sign, moving into Aquarius, it does feel like a wave, doesn't it? There's great imagery of like a giant ship sort of stopping and the water rushing forwards. But it doesn't sort of like do a U-ey. It takes a while to turn. So in that way of Pluto finding itself, finding its footing in Aquarius, which is the sign of the people, it is the sign of the great sort of collective think tank, you know? It's the sign of how we can put our minds to the best possible benefit for the human condition. Pluto is power. Aquarius is the people. So there's power to the people coming to us. On your birth chart, Gemini Rising, Aquarius rules your 9th house, which is where we study and learn about spirituality and philosophy, where we learn and also teach eventually too, where we put forward what it is that we know, where we sort of stand in the sort of glow of the gods and the goddesses, where we try and philosophize to a point of understanding what on earth it is to be a human being and why on earth we are here going through what we are going through right now. So there's bountiful stuff here. There is going to be one more moment of Pluto entering back into Capricorn in September. So by that point, Pluto would have stationed direct and will tick back over to that 29 degree point in Capricorn again. And then we'll finally be in Aquarius full-time January of 2025, so a year from now. But you can see this year is pretty juicy. It's pretty 29 degrees of Capricorn vibes. So all of this revelation, the way that folks are revealing themselves, revealing their true essence, what their true motivations are in this life, perhaps being a bit messy about that too, that's all sort of going to be swelling in a grand crescendo this year. So we'll keep that in mind, and maybe in that way this card can represent those that have had power, that are grasping onto it, and also it can represent us in terms of holding true to our values, holding true to what it is that we do believe, and waiting out the storm. That could be one way to read this card too for you, Gemini Rising. Now, the sun and the moon are speaking quite fondly to the planet Uranus in Taurus, in your 12th house, another very spiritual place, very hidden, very, very unknowable, unconscious. In the old days, it was frowned upon, it was looked on as a place of bad spirit, perhaps, you know, the way that different folks with different pathways in their mind were treated and incarcerated. There's something there, but there is something of potential here too. There is something quite mystical about the 12th house. And Uranus is the rebel, is the revolutionary. So this is that energy that you can feel in the back of your mind thinking, I know that there's something else out there, or I know that there's a different way of doing this. What is in front of me is not computing. I rebel against this. So this support is happening with this moon. So there might be a conversation that you can have with Uranus too. They will station direct on the 24th of January, I believe. So January is pretty chockers. When our planet moves forward, we talk about it, right? It is that sort of, again, that wave. Another thing to consider is that the sun and the moon are in a square, so pressure, with the dragon's head in your 11th house of the human condition, the human species. So this is the year that we're going to be drawn there. You're going to be time and again drawn to, what communities am I building? How can I activate community? How can I be of help in this space? This sun and the moon are in square with that dragon. So perhaps collective grief is something that we can talk about in this reading, Gemini Rising. Perhaps there might be a jolt of that feeling for you, and perhaps that can imbue your intention with a bit more gravitas towards helping everyone or standing by everyone. It can be so overwhelming, the 11th house, sometimes, because it can represent friendships and good community and great times, good spirit, as the ancient ones used to say. But at times such as these, when there is a sort of global dread, there is a lot of gears that are grinding to a halt. There is a lot of revelation. There is a lot of power ill-used and abused that is being shown to us at this time. So I would probably look at the Four of Pentacles as a great omen to go the distance, stand your ground in what it is that you value in your hands right there. Now, there's also another bit of support between your 12th and your 8th house too, with Mars and Jupiter. They're in exact trine. So that's lovely. That's perhaps a bit of courage of your convictions too. Perhaps when you do think about collective grief, there's a bit of bravery there that you can face this. Take breaks. You don't have to wear this as your mission statement forevermore. It can feel horrible sometimes when you feel on the attack. But sort of stand in this bravery, maybe at this new moon too, as you write your new moon intention. Yes, I think I've said everything. Oh, one more thing to say, as a matter of fact. So Venus has entered Sagittarius, and at 15 degrees at this new moon is forming exact trine, exact support with Chiron in your 11th house. Though this I like. Venus speaks to our yielding, malleable, gentle sides. Venus speaks to a sense of nurturing, a sense of beauty, and a sense of investment. And Venus in your 7th house of your relationships, those that you hold close, your beloveds, those that finish off that shape, Gemini to Sagittarius in the 7th house. Venus is shining her light on Chiron in the 11th. That wounding, that unconscious wounding, that pain and trigger that perhaps we can't solve on our own. There's going to be a lot of action with Chiron in the first 6 months of this year, Gemini Rising. I told you that last year, but we'll prepare for it. But this is really interesting to me on your birth chart because it's sort of like this perpetual wound of the group, maybe in a very private way, in a way in which you just don't feel that you belong. Perhaps on a grander scale, you can see the suffering of the collective, the human species. And I think that there's something to be said for your intimate relationships at this time, providing a salve, providing some softness, some smoothness in order to look at these topics, and perhaps some opportunity of collaboration for you both to work towards the same goal when you think about what it is that you can do for humanity. Ooh. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater though, because there's a lesson here that you're really learning. In fact, it's probably come to a crescendo of its own. The World card is the end point of the major secrets of tarot. It is a last hurrah before the Fool arrives again. And it's a card that tells us, well done. You've gone the distance. You've held your ground, really. You've held your mettle. And what you've learned about yourself, about life, about your place in it is a grand one. So I want you to stay with this. This might be a really great emblem or a talisman for you this year, Gemini Rising. If ever things get harsh or tricky for you, jump into your relationship with the World card. In the ancient times, the figure in this card was actually both genders. They had breasts and a penis. They were the sort of immaculate amalgamation of the binary. They represented all. And that's a beautiful, powerful lesson for you to hang on to. And if that's a journey that you're exploring, then I'm cheering you on right now. I want you to think about your sun sign, so separate from Gemini, whatever month you were born, time of year, your personality, your identity, the brightest part of you is a part of this. So those skills that you have in front-facing activations showing up, what you're kind of known for, are going to come into great help this year. We need your ego. Ego isn't a dirty word. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Like, we need one to be able to translate what is going on around us. A lot of folks spend their whole lives trying to surmount their ego or to sort of move away from it, and all in good time. But at this time, let's keep one foot in reality, and let's work with also the King of Swords. Let's work with someone who has a great sort of access to their inner workings, perhaps some great advice about your mentality. Remember, Gemini as an air sign, a mutable air sign, there's a lot of movement there. So if there's tremors this year, tremors around this moon, keep in good company with someone who has had perhaps similar experiences but can guide you through or give you practical solutions, perhaps for some of the harsher spots. That's your reading, Gemini Rising. I hope that was all right. If you're still here with me, put a goat in the comments, please, in honor of Capricorn. Direct intention, hard work, rolling up the sleeves is how we're going to begin this year, but also there's a lot of stuff about to occur, so we're going to weather that together. If you'd like to support my work here, you can subscribe to my channel for $10 a month at buymeacoffee.com/UmaRuby. You can also put some money in the tip jar over there too if you'd like. If you'd like me to read your birth chart, I'll draw you one up. They look like that, and we'll chat on Zoom. You can organise that appointment at umaruby.com. If I have read for you before and you'd like to see me again, head to UmaRuby and you can pick a femme, a truth, a love, a growth, or a magic reading. Have a look. We'll use the astrology and we'll use lots of tarot in our time together. I'm looking forward to this year, as tense as it maybe at times will feel, Gemini Rising, and I look forward to sharing it with you. So I'll speak to you in 2 weeks for the Leo full moon. Take care.